Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This has been a very difficult, almost 12 hours for the Prince George's County Police Department and the residents of Prince George's County. We have families that we are wrapping our arms around. We have a grieving widow, children, parents, extended family, and the family of the Prince George's County Police Department. We have investigators who have been working around the clock and will continue to work throughout the night. I always feel like I have to remind people that this is not CSI, that we do need more time to go through these investigations, comb through the evidence. So the chief is here. He's going to give you an update, and he's going to be able to give you the information he can at this point. But our investigators are still working. They are still out. We have two scenes that they are still combing through. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Police Chief Hank Stawinski with the latest on today's tragic events.
Thank you, Jen, and good evening. As I promised my community, I've come back to provide additional information. Bearing in mind, as Ms. Donelon noted, we are less than 12 hours into this, and this is not, as she said, CSI. So, one of the questions advanced to me was with respect to the nature of this engagement. What I can tell you based on video that I have personally seen is that the suspect in this, Mr. Tyndall, advanced upon our officer and fired 5 times with a shotgun. Our officer, and I want to be very clear about this, was grievously wounded and lost his life in this confrontation. Our officer found himself in that circumstance because he was protecting a neighbor who had sought his assistance with an ongoing dispute with the suspect. There were questions about the nature of that, and I will be clear. Mr. Tyndall is involved in relationships with 3 separate individuals. He has an ex-wife. He has the estranged wife, which was principal to the events today, and then currently is in a relationship with another individual. His ex-wife and his estranged wife have both sought protection from the courts because of his violent behavior. His ex-wife and his current wife have both sought protection from the courts because of his violent behavior. After the confrontation with our officer, he took our officer's weapon. No shots were fired from that weapon on the scene of the initial confrontation based on our Forensic Services Division's tireless work and examination. He then flees. There is a second confrontation with our officers, as you know, on 210. I have a number of officers who have stated clearly that Mr. Tyndall exits his vehicle armed with a handgun. A number of shots are exchanged, and what I will say to you is that we have collected numerous shell casings. Our officer's weapon was not fired at the site of the initial confrontation, but there are a number of rounds missing from our officer's weapon, which was found in Mr. Tyndall's possession. Right now, my Forensic Sciences Division is going to work through the night, comparing those shell casings to the shell casings of the officers who we know engaged him. And when I have the outcome of that forensic analysis, I will share that with my community. Lastly, before I answer questions, a very harmful narrative has been advanced that this is somehow the product of a relationship between our officer and this neighbor. A very harmful narrative has been advanced. I have absolutely no evidence to corroborate that. Whatever this man might have said to his family members about his relationships and the circumstances surrounding his engagement with the criminal law system, I cannot account for. But I have evidence vis-a-vis information from today's victim, from a cell phone, and other evidence that corroborates the account of both the intended victim from today, his current estranged wife, and from the widow that roundly disputes these allegations. My community knows me. When I have facts, you will have facts. And there's nothing that corroborates this. Our officer lost his life saving the life of the intended victim today, period. Our officers, deputies from Charles County, and the Prince George's County Sheriff's Office officers who intervened are to be credited, because it's very likely, based on the behavior that has been described to me at that second confrontation, that other lives could have been lost. I have no reason to doubt the intentions of the officer we have lost, and I fully support the actions taken by our officers and those other officers with us today in resolving a very dangerous situation. I want to thank the President of the Fraternal Order of Police for being with me throughout this entire process. I want to thank my Assistant Chief who returned from New Orleans today to be with me to help this institution through this. I want to thank my deputies. I want to thank the County Executive and the State's Attorney. I want to thank the Governor for all of the outreach. I ask for your consideration for a family. And as I said before, no fact will be kept from the public's knowledge. I have no information to corroborate the narrative that's been advanced. If I do, you'll know. If I don't, I respectfully ask you to not advance this narrative. Do you have any questions for me?
You said the officer that was home, was his family, any members of his family home on the incident?
No, they were not. No, they were not.
Chief, did Corporal Ramsden respond to the incident with a service revolver? Did this man somehow load up with it? Did he have it in his hand? What do you know about that?
Our officer was approached approximately 24 hours prior. The intended victim in this and our officer had lived in proximity with each other for approximately 4 years. They did not have a relationship. They had not formed even a friendship. She had noted that he parked his marked police car next to his home. She had sought the protection of the courts, and the courts and the sheriff's office were in the process of providing that protection, but was in the process of trying to get some of her belongings out of this home. He had had a conversation with her briefly, as I said, less than 24 hours ago. When he observed her across the street today, he approached her, asking if she was okay. She had some concerns. He offered to go in and allay those concerns. There were 2 other individuals there at that time who corroborate this entire account, and we've spoken to them. He is outside with her after they have looked into her concerns within the home. When he is confronted, there's an initial volley of 3 shots. There's a pause. There are 2 more shots, and that is the end of the gunfire. It is our belief, and when I know for a fact, I will share this with you, but it's our belief at this point, based on the circumstances, that he is grievously injured in that first volley of 3 shots.
So he had his service revolver?
He had his weapon with him, as well as his police radio. He had called for further assistance, and that was the last transmission we received from him.
These are shotgun. Go ahead.
Do you know if he called for assistance before he headed out to help or after he was shot?
There was a phone call made by the intended victim seeking assistance. There was a belief that additional officers were en route, but Mr. Tyndall had taken action, and I can't share all the details with respect to this, but it involves a home security system, that belief was incorrect. When the confrontation occurs, our officer signals and announces a signal 13, which is an officer in need of assistance. And it is immediately thereafter that the confrontation occurs. So he has his radio and he has his weapon. Right now, we're less than 12 hours into this. I shouldn't like to put myself in the mind of a person who would murder a police officer. I will have more insight into what we believe his motivations are as we look at his behavior in the days prior. But what I will say is that both his ex-wife and his estranged wife had sought protection because of his violent behavior. And at the end of the day, I've observed a video that shows the individual firing downrange at my officer. So I think his actions speak pretty loudly. Precisely. Approximately 30 yards. All of those were fired from a range of approximately 30 yards.
Do we not know if the suspect was supposed to have this gun? I know that earlier you mentioned that we're trying to look into that. The ATF was supposed to look into that. Do we not know if he was supposed to have a shotgun?
Based on the history, and Ms. Donlan's going to be providing that to you, I still believe that he should not have had a weapon. You are free to examine that, draw your own conclusions. We are less than 12 hours into this, and that's again where I'm asking for your patience and my community's cooperation as we run all this information down. Know that in the days that follow, I will be coming back to you and I'll be providing you comprehensive information on this.
Question.
Just to clarify, the estranged wife is the victim in this case. Did they live in the same house?
So their relationship has been troubled, and there has been a separation for some period of time. In the most immediately preceding week, she had not been in the area, had returned to the area, and without getting into too much more detail, they were not cohabitating. And then we believe, and it comes back to what I mentioned about this home security system, he became aware of her presence. But goes back to this gentleman's question, looking at his conduct over the last several days, exactly how he arrived there, what was his intent. We will know that because I have the best investigators in the world, but we're less than 12 hours into it, and I can't paint you a picture of his pathology just yet. Yes. Yes. That was to do with seeking the protection of the courts with respect to his violent conduct. Yes, those individuals' presence was directly related to her seeking help. So again, I'll be able to provide you comprehensive details, and we have yet to talk to a number of principals in this, and certainly out of respect for the widow, we want to be circumspect. I will not share any additional details now, but they will be forthcoming. Suffice it to say that 2 women had sought the protection of the courts because of his conduct, and we saw what happened today. Video comes to us from a home security system. It is not the only one that we are aware of, but it is the one that I have viewed.
To clarify, did Mrs. Tyndall call 911 prior to looking?
She did not call 911.
So there were no calls from her to 911?
There were no calls from her to 911
Your corporal called for backup?
via his radio once he becomes aware of the presence of Mr. Tyndall with a shotgun.
There is a female person who does not call 911, but she does call 911.
It was less than an hour. Based on the circumstances I have now, it was less than an hour.
So, Chief, can you say anything else about the other weapon that he used and the exchange of gunfire with police? You said he exchanged fire with police?
So again, to be clear, he removed our officer's weapon from the scene. And then that weapon was not fired at the scene of the initial confrontation, but when we recovered that weapon, a number of rounds had been fired from the magazine. And those shell casings from, at this point, preliminarily, 3 weapons are in the other part of this building being examined so that I can say to a certainty for you, for my community, which weapon those shell casings came out of. I will be clear about one thing. This was a dynamic scene. We've recovered every shell casing we could find. My understanding is that we might not have every shell casing. So at the end of that analysis, I will come to you and I will tell you everything I have, but that work will go on through the night.
Chief, 3 weapons, the suspect's shotgun, the corporal's handgun. What is that third weapon?
No. 2 officers fired their service weapons, and then there are rounds missing out of our officers, our fallen officer's weapon. Those are the 3 weapons I'm talking about. Yes. Now, again, when I have facts, I will provide facts. The narrative that's been advanced, for whatever reason, and certainly I understand that there are people on both sides of this equation in pain, but I have absolutely nothing, and I want my community to know this, I have absolutely nothing to substantiate those allegations. And you would have my great appreciation on behalf of this family that if we don't advance that narrative, and if I find something out as a result of this investigation, then you will know. Let me pause you for 1 second. I want to take an opportunity to ask the president of the FOP if he'd like to come up and say a few words, and if you have any questions for him. He has been a valuable partner during my entire administration, and we both had a difficult day. But if there's something I missed, President, please, at this point.
Thank you, Chief. I would just like to, on behalf of the men and women of the Fraternal Order of Police, Lodge 89, who faithfully and selflessly serve the citizens of Prince George's County every day and every night, thank this community, our leaders, our elected officials, from here in Prince George's County, the state of Maryland, and throughout this country for their outpouring of support and their prayers. Corporal Ramsden, hero, mentor, father, son, husband. By all accounts, this man was doing everything in life right. He was a devout Muslim. He assisted his brothers and sisters on this department in adhering to their religious practices, mentored other young police officers to be better fathers and better husbands, selflessly gave of himself to our nation in the United States Marine Corps and to the citizens of Prince George's County. He deserves better than to have his images plastered on television of the way he died today. Please have the courtesy to remember this man as he lived, what he stood for, and the model he is to this community, because we are all better off that this man was here and this man served. He is what makes this community great and what continues to keep us safe day in and day out. Thank you.
Any other questions?
One more point I do want to make, and it's an important one to me. I want to thank the Prince George's Muslim Association. I want to thank the Dianet Center for their support through this trying time. I want to thank the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner. They did something tremendous for us, which will allow us to honor our officers' religious beliefs in accordance with his faith. And that's deeply important to us. And for those who are out there listening, the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, thank you. It means the world to me and to this institution, and know that that was greatly valued. Ms. Donlin?
There were many people who stood on overpasses and stopped their cars on shoulders today as we were transporting his body to the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner in Baltimore. It has been an emotionally overwhelming day, and to see that support out there, I know, brought great peace to all of our officers in our department as we carried his body in an honorable way to Baltimore. He is now back here in Prince George's County in his home. We are planning in the coming hours and days to honor him. We will never forget his sacrifice in your continued reporting, I would ask that you think about his family as you report this story. Make sure your information is confirmed before you, as the chief said, further narratives that we do not know whether or not lie in truth or, and quite honestly, have anything to do with what happened to a man taking a shotgun and opening fire on our officer and killing him in cold blood in the middle of a street this morning. Because those are the facts, and his family is grieving and this department is grieving. And we want to thank our community so much for your support in the coming days and hours. Thank you so much.
Is there any information you can share on funeral arrangements?
At this point, no, but I am asking that if you could just please keep in contact with us. We are hoping perhaps over the next 20 hours or so, we'd be able to tell you.
I'll be spending with the people you see around me and others who are over there. We'll be spending the entire day tomorrow. As soon as we have that, and again, my appreciation to the Prince George Muslim Association and the Dianet Center, as soon as we have that, the community will have that. Thank you, everybody. Good night.